If you ever wanted to be the fusion of Batman and Wolverine, which yes, did happen, then look no further than the Claws of Night. Sporting a very quick moveset, innate bleed, and even magic damage, and on top of all of that, having access to ranged attacks, this weapon is quite versatile, and you will not be disappointed with it, especially if you're rocking a dexterity build, which, let's be honest, has been heavily favored for the DLC given all the options that are available. I was never really the biggest fan of claw weapons in this game until I ran into these, and even became my weapon of choice going up against the final boss in the DLC, which definitely impressed me given that 9 times out of 10 people end up using some kind of a great shield combo in order to take down said final boss. Just like with my Rakshasa build video, I will not be diving into spoilers just yet, instead focusing on how this weapon fares against different enemies and how it stands out in PvP. So with all that being said, let's get right into the build. The weapon, of course, being the Claws of Night, and because this build will be using buffs, the Frenzied Flame Seal will be the preferred choice given the stat distribution. Armor is going to be entirely up to you. I personally enjoy Letta's armor and how it synergizes with the playstyle of the claws. Talismans include the Smithing Talisman for increased projectile damage, the Shard of Alexander to further boost the weapon skill's damage output, Rotten Winged Sword Insignia for increased damage with successive attacks, and finally, Millicent's Prosthesis to boost the dexterity and provide more damage. While this is a dexterity build, I've allocated the stats in a way that it's flexible for the player to be able to sport different weapons on the side and have access to more options. Feel free to reallocate some of the stats such as strength in case you want to go all in on the claws, but as it is, you have more options without sacrificing damage output. As I mentioned earlier, this build uses buffs, so it will be the traditional Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, with the cracked tiers being focused on damage negation and increased damage with consecutive attacks. While this weapon is indeed insane when you're up close and personal, you have access to a long-range attack that isn't the Ash of War. Simply hold down the heavy attack to launch projectiles at a certain range. This attack also costs nothing, so it's great if you want to save your Ash of War for when it really counts. Speaking of, Scatter Shot is amazing for dealing with multiple targets and easily disposes of them. When going up against bosses, the light attacks are excellent for easily triggering the effects of the talismans to increase the total damage output that you're capable of. Not to mention that if things get too hairy, you just have to stay at a distance to launch projectiles while you can. The Claws of Night also have an amazing trait. As if you need another reason to be sold on this weapon, if you're going up against anyone using a shield, no matter how often they block, they will still take damage. So, they can hide behind their precious shield as much as they want, but it won't make a difference. Now, if you want to see this weapon in all of its glory, then face large enemies such as the Blood Fiends. Because they sport no armor, it is very easy to proc bleed, and due to their large hitboxes, you can land most, if not all, of your scattershot projectiles. It truly feels like you're going into a berserk mode like Wolverine. The Claws of Night are also exceptional in PvP. It gets a bad rep because there's some people that just spam the weapon skill like no tomorrow, but you don't really need to do that. The weapon's moveset is great at applying pressure, and I only find myself using the weapon skill when my opponent is playing passively, or I try to lure them for a quick counterattack. When my opponent has ranged options, I try to get some free hits in with the charged heavy attack. It also catches them off guard a lot of the time. An interesting matchup is going up against someone using martial arts. It becomes either very heated or very one-sided. Given that this is the same opponent from the last match, let's see how things play out differently here. Yeah, if you get enough hits in, you can definitely proc bleed, even in a short window. Great shield builds like this one can be frustrating to go up against. However, as I demonstrated in the video, even if they decide to block the whole time, the Claws of Night will still do damage. Let me know what you think of the Claws of Night, and if you tried them out yourself. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, take care.